Welcome to our June meeting. I apologize, my voice is not very loud today. And sorry for the delay in starting. We are going to start the meeting with a moment of silence. Oh, actually, first we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we'd ask for 2 moments of silence. Start off with Marvin Bausch, who is our science department chair and worked in our district for 16 years, passed away recently. And our beloved Martha Sammartano, after a long and valiant fight, passed away 2 weeks ago. Martha's a lifelong Jericho resident, graduated from Jericho High School, and there probably is no one who is as committed to the Jericho family as Martha was. Martha had a valiant fight for over 2 years, almost 3 years, and she passed away. So I would ask that we all bow our heads for a moment in memory of Marvin and memory of Martha.
Retirees.
This evening, we're going to start our board meeting with a recognition of our retirees. The highlight of our June Board of Education meeting is an opportunity for us not only to recognize retirees who have given 21 years, 21 years, 21 years, 20 years, 42 years, 19 years, 19 years, but have committed a lifetime to the Jericho School District and the students of Jericho. So as we celebrate our retirees this evening, we also do that with our thanks for their commitment to our students. And with that, to begin the process, Ivy, who's first up?
All right, I'm thrilled to commend Mary Jo, who just last week was recognized by the Nassau Counselors Association as Counselor of the Year. Additionally, I want to congratulate her on retirement as she completes her 19th year as a high school counselor in Jericho. Throughout her remarkable career, Mary Jo has made an indelible impact on the lives of countless students. Her unwavering dedication and tireless efforts have been instrumental in supporting and empowering them. Mary Jo's innate ability to connect with students on a personal level, coupled with her commitment to providing guidance and resources, has helped them succeed academically and personally. As she embarks on this new chapter of her life, I'm confident that Mary Jo's professionalism, kindness, and expertise will continue to shine. Her legacy as a counselor and the profound difference she has made in the lives of others will be cherished and remembered for years to come. Congratulations, Mary Jo, on your retirement and the incredible impact you've made as a high school counselor. Next, I would like to introduce Patrick Fogarty, our Director of Technology.
I am extremely excited to invite Gail Bodner up to the front, please. Flowers, Gail. There you go. So I prepared a few comments, but I think I really want to just focus on how incredible it's been to work with Gail as part of the team that we all are on. When I first started at Jericho, one of the first things I did was ask Gail if she would move back into the main office with Amy and I. Those of you who know, Amy is our secretary. And she did. And I'm so grateful and happy that she accepted that offer. As anyone who's worked with her can attest to, Gail's much more than a data person in the technology department. She's a therapist. She's a help desk technician. She gets calls from a group of people I call the Galettes, who call her every day, multiple times a day, to ask a bunch of questions, and she helps them all as much as she possibly can. The most impressive thing to me about Gail is that she shifts seamlessly from one role to the other, as she can be answering the always ringing tech office phone to deal with like the simplest troubleshooting issues. She can remote into a computer. She can work on PowerSchool. She can do just about anything that needs to be done in the tech office. And she does it in such a way that people feel supported and grateful and treated with respect and dignity. There's no silly question in the tech office. And I think Gail is someone who makes people feel like they can call and ask us just about anything. The outpouring of affection here at Jericho since she announced her retirement, I think, is proof of the outsized impact she has had in her time at the district. So in closing, I want to thank you for your years of service and sincerely thank you for what you've brought to our office and me. And for so many other people who needed you when they needed help. So here's to a well-deserved retirement. Enjoy your house, enjoy the kids, enjoy everybody. And please don't forget the impact you've had here. We're gonna miss you. Thank you. This is important. Please welcome Chad Gleason, the middle school principal. Thank you.
Another batting order. It's my honor to speak on behalf of Ms. Peggy Rudis. Would you join me up at the podium, please? Mrs. Rudis's commitment to the children of Jericho started well before she became an employee in the school district. Mrs. Rudis was an active volunteer in the PTSA while her children attended Jericho schools. She was a founding member of SEPTA, and in 1994, she was part of a committee that provided inclusion to students who at the time would have been sent to a placement outside of Jericho schools, and she welcomed them back into the school district. That was really groundbreaking work at that time. Somewhere out there's a brilliant administrator who recognized Ms. Rudis's commitment and dedication and keen intellect and brought Ms. Rudis to the middle school. Working in the attendance office, Mrs. Rudis is often the first point of contact for families on some of their happiest and their most difficult days. Weddings, funerals, vacations, sicknesses, and sometimes sicknesses that are actually vacations are all reasons why someone might need to contact Mrs. Rudis. Through it all, Mrs. Rudis has provided a sense of stability and reassurance during moments of uncertainty. Her kindness and empathy have touched the lives of countless families in Jericho. Mrs. Rudis explained her approach by simply saying, "I've always treated the children here the way I want my own children to be treated." Mrs. Rudis is looking forward to turning off her alarm clock and moving in closer to her son and daughter in Alexandria, Virginia. Peggy, we're going to miss you and wish you the absolute best in your future. It is now my pleasure to introduce the principal of Ratner Seaman Elementary School and Curriculum Associate for Science and Technology, Joanna Clutter and Kim Libertini.
We would like to call up Jacqueline O'Neill. Jackie's enthusiasm for science and love for teaching was apparent from the first time that we met. She has taken students down the road of curiosity, and her passion for science has taken flight in thousands of youngsters. A New York State Master Teacher Emeritus, Jackie is among a select number of teachers that through professional development and professional learning teams paved the way to inspire the next generation of STEM leaders. As we approach spring break this year, I saw Jackie and asked her if she was excited for her retirement travels. In true Jackie fashion, her answer was, "To tell you the truth, Kim, I'm having so much fun with the students doing labs that I haven't even had time to think about my retirement." This speaks volumes about who Jackie is as an educator, her love for her students, her love for teaching, and love for learning. Jackie's science specialist colleagues, Laureato and Janine Mayone, shared, "If there's one word that describes Jackie, it is dedication. She is dedicated to her friends, to her colleagues, to Jericho, and to her profession. She lives and breathes science, whether it is in the preparation for a lesson or enjoying a nature hike. She has been an integral part of the science program since she started. They are finding it tough to imagine navigating the educational path without her."
In the short time that I've had the honor of working with Jackie at Ratner Seaman, I have been awed by her dedication as well. She can be found in her classroom late at night. So late, the custodians might have to tell her to go home before the moon sets and the sun begins to rise. In the quiet of her classroom, she's there reviewing notes that she's taken. Many, many notes, many notes. And those notes are her reflections on teaching, her continued professional learning, and her questions that she's ready to ask the children or to think about herself. She's also in her classroom tweeting images of the magical moments that take place across the week. I read a quote that reminded me of Jackie. "Some people only dream of meeting their favorite scientists. I teach mine." Our students are certainly Jackie's favorite scientists. Jackie's enthusiasm, positive outlook, ways with students, and her laugh will certainly be missed by all of Jericho. As you pack your bags for your retirement adventures, we know you'll continue to be a scientist beyond the classroom walls. You'll be exploring, discovering, and creating moments you will never forget. Thank you for leaving your mark on our hearts and on all the young scientists in our Jericho family. We'd like to introduce Dr. Rivera and Dr. Salzman.
At this time, we'd like to call up Kathy Ferris. Kathy has been with the Jericho School District for nearly 20 years. When thinking about how best to describe Kathy and her time here in the school district, several colleagues said it best. Kathy has many amazing attributes. She is extremely organized, frowns upon clutter, and is all about getting things done on time. According to Kathy, if it is not done early, it's considered late. She is a reliable and dedicated friend and colleague. She is always there to listen, to give advice and support. Kathy also enjoys vacationing with her family and friends. Your friends, Kathy, wish you many wonderful adventures, boating on Long Island, and touring the country and world. They are confident you will live up to your title as WT, World Traveler. Kathy has shared a room with her reading colleague, Tina, for 20 years. And from Tina, Kathy, she says this: Tina is happy that Kathy never asked to move out or have her moved out of the room, though Kathy might have secretly wished for it. Tina wants you to know that you are her roomie. Kathy, keep doing what you love. We will miss you dearly. You are thanked for all the love and support you have shown to so many people, both professionally and personally. As you enjoy this next chapter on those down days, we wish you rest and relaxation with the sun in your back, book in your hand, and toes in the sand. Thank you for all your years of service. We wish you great health and happiness, and congratulations to your upcoming retirement. We love you, Kathy. Dan wrote half of it. Thank you, Kathy. I'd also now like to call to join me here, Michael Hahn. Michael is the head of our buildings and grounds. And with that, our next retiree to honor, Mr. Dom Di Clemente. Come on, Dom. Domenico. Yeah, listen, flowers for everyone. To see Mike. Dom has been with the Jericho School District for nearly 22 years. In listening to others speak about Dom, here are some of the words that have been shared. One colleague said, "The one thing that stands out is how hard Dom works to keep Jackson so clean. Dom takes such great pride in that. He always remains humble and ready to help whenever asked. His shoes will be tough to fill." Another colleague says, "Better call Dom. This man is our own MacGyver. No one waxes a floor just like him. Dom is generous to everyone, and if you didn't know, a great dancer." Words from other colleagues in the building include, "Dom to me makes Jackson feel like home. He brings a sense of comfort, love, peace, and family to the school. He takes so much pride in everything he does, again, especially the shiny floors. And even on his worst of days, he will drop everything to help with anything you need, whether it be personal or work related. He has helped many people in our building more times than we can count. And he is a wonderful, genuine, funny, caring man. Dom is truly one of a kind. We love his stories and pictures about how he turns his bushes at home into Disney characters for his grandkids, or Dom's goldfish obsession. We don't have to tell you, Dom, just how hard you work, because we see it every single day. Dom will be greatly missed, and coming to work will not be the same. Thank you for all your years of service. We wish you great health and happiness on your upcoming retirement. And I do want to say one thing. When I met Dom 4 years ago, my father retired after 29 years of being a custodian. The love and appreciation that I have for this man and for the work that is done by all of our buildings and grounds crew cannot be understated. I will absolutely miss you. You have kept our building a very beautiful place. The staff and the audience, people not here, thank you for that. Congratulations, Dom. We love you. And I turn it over to Mike for some words.
There's no question about how hard Dominic works, and if any of you have been to the building, you see how shiny the floors are and how wonderful a place is kept. His dedication to the district and the pride that he takes in his work is really second to none. I've been working with Dominic now since I got here in 2013. He's one of those individuals that truly feels that the condition of the building is a direct reflection on him. And throughout the years and every summer, Dom works with the contractors, the B&G crew, the PTA, and all of the Jackson staff to make sure that everything is just perfect. Every summer, we've got all kinds of construction going on, and he's always working with the construction crews. And as soon as they pull out, usually at the 11th hour, Dominic works through that 12th hour to make sure that the school is all ready for the staff and students comes opening day. For those of you who've had the pleasure to work with Dom, you know how hard he works and keeps everything in the building working well. He does this to provide as much service as he can to the staff and the students. Dom, we wish you well in your retirement and hope that you have the time of your life now to care for your fig trees, your birds, your fish, and most importantly, taking those family vacations. Alex and I were trying to think of what could we get you, and in the spirit of Jericho, you know, the colors are blue and yellow, right? We got you a little something here. Get it out. We got him a little something here that is also blue and yellow. Something that I know I enjoy. I know Hank enjoys. So, congratulations. Best of luck.
Thank you. Very nice of you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Here, take the cover. Go back on? Ah, forget it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. I'd like to now call up Kathy Stanish to please join me. Kathy is my secretary as well as like the family therapist to the entire department. Hears all of our problems and gives us an opportunity to talk things out and get things straight. I'll tell you how great she is and how important she is. Throughout the years, she's been, well, hold on a second. This for you. Throughout the years, Kathy's been part of the B&G team. She's been extremely dedicated and a key part in the success of our department. During COVID, she made sure and made it a point to track every B&G employee, ensure that the crew was following the precautions, sometimes a little over the top, but always with the best interest of everyone in mind. She helped to coordinate the pickup and delivery of all of those supplies to everybody throughout the district. She's been extremely cautious and careful as she herself feared of getting the disease, or the virus, excuse me. Not for her own health, but that to protect of her father-in-law. Thankfully, throughout all the years of COVID, she's remained healthy and never got it. However, with the restrictions lifted and as careful as she had been just a few weeks ago, her father-in-law got it and gave it to her. So, a little something I wanted to share with you. Kathy's very meticulous in her record keeping, very diligent in keeping track of the hours that the crews work, the work orders that they're assigned. She goes out of her way to help organize the outside activities and processing our building permits and working with the JAA, as well as the various departments to make these outside activities and events go through smoothly. She's extremely thorough in following up with contractors on work schedules, and there are many days that I'm out of the office at one of the schools or involved in projects, and she always helps to handle the office operations behind the scenes. She's always on the phone with me, constantly confirming the appointments and adjusting schedules. In many ways, she's been an angel, looking out for the best interest of me, the department, and the district. And although I wish you the very best in your retirement, you'll be a very big loss to both the operation and the district. As I mentioned, in some ways, you've been like an angel. So knowing that, also knowing you like bourbon, little angel's envy for you. You will be sorely missed. You got big shoes to fill, and I'm really going to truly miss you. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to call up Kim Libertini.
I'd like to call up Barry Grossman. Behind the scenes of the Jericho Science Department, there are so many elements that need to align in order to prevent a storm. Order supplies, make chemical solutions, set up labs, and chaperone field trips are among a few. For over 20 years, for a department of approximately 50 teachers, as the department lab aide, Barry Grossman has taken care of these elements day in and day out. Like the eye of a storm, no matter what is going on around him, Barry is always calm and holds a sunny viewpoint. A man of many talents, Barry Grossman arrived to Jericho after retiring from a career as a meteorologist. His role as the weather forecaster took on a new meaning as the Jericho staff relied upon him to predict the snow days for almost 20 years. Although I'm not sure if the recent Ethan Brown snow day was among his predictions, but Barry has a solid reputation for letting us know when school will be canceled or on a delay. Who knew when he was hired that he had another hidden talent? Throughout the year, you can find Barry tending to the flora and fauna on the middle school and high school campus. Essentially, he has proudly become our in-house horticulturist. Chances are, if you pass by a potted plant on your way in this evening, it was properly pruned and cared for by Barry. What do you say to an amazing lab aide, building horticulturist, and former meteorologist as he prepares to enjoy a life of retirement? May you find yourself in a high-pressure system. May your skies be clear, and you have all the time in the world to appreciate the beauty of the flowers you've grown. Barry Grossman, thank you for bringing sunshine to Jericho. We wish you the best retirement adventures. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. David Cohen, the co-principal of Jericho High School.
Just as an aside, if we don't have any snow days next year, it'll be because Barry is not on site.
It is truly my honor to ask Miss Barbara Spahn to come on down. I'm going to say a few. Barbara Spahn has worked nearly 22 amazing years in the Jericho School District. She first supported the district office for a few years before transitioning into the high school. Barbara has been a rock in her support of many different high school administrators throughout her incredible career. During my first year as co-principal at the high school, I was so fortunate to be paired with Barbara. She was my guide in learning the Jericho way and has been my anchor for the past 4 years. Anyone who has been a building leader knows that while we are the ones out in front, it is truly our clerical support that really runs the building. And knowing that Barbara has worked with so many high school administrators for nearly the past 2 decades, it's essentially Barbara who's been running our great high school. So thank you, Barbara. You've been doing a great job. Barbara is a wonderful mom to Jacqueline and Victoria, a proud and loving grandmother to Brielle and Braden, and is also a phenomenal wife to Michael. My favorite memories of Barbara will be how she lights up while watching videos of Brielle and Braden, as she often gets her morning dose. As Barbara prepares for her retirement, we need to make sure her library card is active, as one of the happy places she has is entrenched in a good novel. I know she is excited to have more time with her grandchildren and maybe even some additional time on a sunny beach during the cold months. Barbara is a very special and beautiful person, and we wish her the very best in her retirement. Congratulations, Barbara. And I turn it back over to you, Mr. Grisham.
Thank you. Not with us this evening, and we'd like to also congratulate Debbie Pasafumi, Beth Paisano, Claudia Seibenhauer, April Song, Marie Swerkowski, Carolyn Clark, Kathleen Crean, Marcia Frank, and Tracy Gillette. Congratulations to those retirees as well, and we're sorry that they couldn't be with us here this evening.
While we're talking about the retirees, let's do the resolution. Whereas the previously mentioned retirees are retiring, they provided dedicated service to the children of Jericho and have been capable, cooperative, and loyal members of the staff. Be it resolved that the Board of Education extends sincere appreciation on behalf of the community for a job well done, and we extend honor upon them who has been an important part of the history of the community. Do I have a motion? Thanks, Jen. Second. Chris, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
This evening, we have a wonderful sheet cake from Leonetti's out in the lobby, and we invite our retirees and their families to partake in some cake as we continue the board meeting. So we'll take a 60-second break while our retirees enjoy some cake out in the lobby. Ira, you're not retiring. I didn't. I lost. We'd like to invite Kim Libertini back up to the microphone, please.
There we go. Okay. I'd like to call up Dr. Serena McCalla. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Serena McCalla in her receipt of the 2023 National Geographic Wayfinder Award. Each year, National Geographic awards this honor to 15 individuals worldwide. This year's awardees include an Egyptologist, documentary filmmaker, investigative journalist, biologist, urban ecologist, and other innovators, and were selected for their exemplary achievements in exploration through science, education, conservation, technology, and storytelling. Wayfinder Award recipients are individuals who have proven themselves to be the next generation of influential leaders, communicators, and innovators whose critical work inspires us to learn about, care for, and protect the wonder of our world. Their groundbreaking work covers a vast array of impact-driven projects, including connecting youth to the ocean, using innovative technology to track insects across landscapes, investigating critical environmental stories, and developing equitable conservation solutions for poor communities. If you know Dr. McCalla, her work ethic is second to none. She models grit and serves as an outstanding educator. She is an outstanding woman leader in STEM. And if you attended the recent Science Research Symposium or have picked up the newspaper and read about the awards her students have won, you understand why Dr. McCalla is so deserving of this award.
Thank you, Kim. This time of the year is, and again, during the superintendent's report, one of the comments that I would talk about, but I'm going to do that now, is June is a month of celebrations. We have an opportunity to celebrate the incredible achievements of our kids, elementary kids, middle school kids, high school kids, and it's also an opportunity for us to recognize the incredible accomplishments of our outstanding staff. So this evening, again, our pleasure to recognize Serena for all of her hard work. Additionally, you heard Greg mention a little earlier, Mary Jo Moriarty, who I think is eating cake as we speak. Mary Jo was awarded the Nassau County Counselor of the Year. Again, an honor that is so well earned for all of her hard work supporting our kids, literally supporting our kids 24/7, an incredible guidance counselor. Last month I had mentioned, and I think the actual celebration was this evening, that our Eric Sundberg was recognized as the Social Studies Director of Long Island of the Year. Again, another celebration for another staff member who goes above and beyond and is recognized not just in Jericho, but outside of Jericho. This Tuesday, I was honored to be at a recognition of Victor Manuel. Victor was recognized by the New York State Association of School Business Officials. Basically, it's I'm going to call it a Lifetime Achievement and Lifetime Service Award. That is the highest award that's given by ASBO, and it's given to one person each year. And Victor was surprised by receiving that award on Tuesday. Again, a well-earned reward. And both of his daughters and his wife were there to celebrate with him, and I was very lucky to be there as well. Congratulations, Victor. Well earned.
Middle School Student Council, Rayan and Rumasea. Did I get your names right?
Good evening. My name is Ramaisa Hassan. I am a 6th grade student council representative.
And my name is Ryan Hassan, and I am a 7th grade student council representative. And yes, we are siblings.
Can you believe that it is the end of the school year already? Well, time flies by when you're having fun.
The SEL theme for June is reflection and traditions. How appropriate for the month of June with the upcoming Moving Up on Thursday, June 22nd at 9:30 a.m. right here in the middle school and high school auditorium.
We hope the students reflect upon the 2022 to 2023 school year filled with great accomplishment, both academically and personally. We wish them the best in their transition to high school next year.
In preparing for the 6th grade, the elementary schools visited the middle school in May and had the wonderful opportunity to meet the staff as well as the current 6th grade students. In addition, the high school counselors visited the 8th graders to discuss their upcoming move to the high school.
Good luck to the following 7 middle school students who are competing this weekend in National History Day competition at the University of Maryland. They are competing against the top students in the 50 states and territories. 7th graders are Jay Patel and Zihan Wei.
And 8th graders are Lorenzo DeTerry, Eric John, Aryan Mukherjee, Charles Park, and Sahana Sundar. The following middle school students competed in Arlington, Virginia this past weekend at their international academic competitions and were quite successful. 8th grader Helen Wang placed 17th in the nation for the National Science Bee.
7th grader Ryan Hassan advanced to the quarterfinals of the National Science Bee, finishing in the top 48 and placed 2nd in the biology exam. 6th grader Joshua Harwitz placed 15th in the nation for the National Science Bee, 5th in the biology exam, and 6th in the physical science exam.
6th grader Nicholas Wang placed 19th in the nation in the National History Bee, top 100 in the National Science Bee, 34th in the U.S. History Bee, and 22nd in the U.S. Military History exam. In addition, 6th grader Cameron Kareem placed 38th in the U.S. Geography Bee and top 100 for the International Geography Bee.
6th grader Brent Costello placed 8th in the Recent History exam, 13th in the nation for the U.S. History Bee, 14th in the Ancient History exam, 19th in the U.S. Military History exam, top 100 of the National History Bee, 5th place in the Black American History exam. 6th grader William Zhu placed 23rd in the National Science Bee and 31st in the nation for the National History Bee.
6th grader Crystal Zhou placed in the top 100 in the National Science Bee. 6th grader Samuel Tay placed in the top 100 in the nation for the National History Bee. Sixth grader Ryan Chen placed in the top 100 of the History Beat.
Sixth grader Austin Zhang placed in the top 100 of the National Science Beat, and sixth grader Hanru Zhang placed in the top 100 of the National Science Beat.
This is the first time that students have entered the international academic competitions. So thank you to Ms. Cantwell for this exciting opportunity and her dedication.
And more exciting news to report. 8th grader Chloe Hu won second place and a $1,000 prize in this year's Lowell Milken Center for Unsung Heroes Artifact Competition. Chloe's amazing artwork spotlighted actress Hedy Lamarr and her contributions to the development of a radio guidance system for Allied torpedoes that used frequency hopping technology to defeat the threat of jamming by the Axis powers during World War II. This technology led to the development of secure Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth, now used by billions of people around the world. Wow, congratulations, Chloe.
8th grade students will be attending the Adventureland trip and the Crescent Beach Club celebration on June 20th and June 21st. In addition, Regents exams will also be taking place next week. On Friday, June 16th, we will celebrate our annual Personal Best Awards. Students will be recognized for doing their personal best and demonstrating SEL competencies.
And the last day of school is Friday, June 23rd. The quarterly grades will be posted in online, and the parent portal will be open on Wednesday, June 28th.
Also, we would like to wish all of our retirees the best of luck. And finally, a very big thank you to Mr. Gleason, Ms. Blue, and the staff for an outstanding year. Have a great summer.
Thank you, high school student council, Patrick and Ruby. I just want to say you guys have been amazing, and we love listening to you all year, and we're going to miss you. Best of luck.
Good evening, Mr. Grishman, board members, administration, and the Jericho community.
We said our goodbyes at the last board meeting, but we hope you didn't miss us too much because we're in fact back. But we promise we won't take so much of your time.
The senior party was yesterday, and everyone had a great time. We want to thank the PTA for organizing the evening, and we can't wait until prom and graduation.
And again, thank you all so much for having us this year. We wanted to thank the board, administration, and our principals, Mr. Cohen, Dr. Prizanzano, Mr. Cummings, and Dr. Finley, and our advisors, Ms. Khan and Ms. Romano, and of course, all of you.
Now we'd like to pass the baton to the team coming next year, who we know will do amazing.
Congratulations again to our new co-presidents, Mark Sheen and Natasha Colviwatt, and our new Board of Education student representative, Caitlin Choi. We know you will do great things.
Thank you all, and good night.
Good evening to the Jericho community. My name is Natasha Colviwatt.
And I'm Mark Sheen. We would like to introduce ourselves as the new student body co-presidents. We are both very excited to work with you all throughout the upcoming year, and here is the recap of events through the past month.
In early May, both the Nassau County Chess Championships and the Nassau County Interscholastic Math League results came out. Our mathletes team and chess team took first place in Nassau County. Congratulations to all the hardworking students and advisors for both teams, Dr. DeMarinis and Mr. Bodie.
On May 22nd, May 31st, and June 5th, different school departments hosted a series of award ceremonies to recognize student awards and excellence. They were our first in-person award ceremony since COVID, and students were recognized by the district-wide academics department, the physical education, health, and athletic department, and the music department.
At the May 14th to 19th, 2023 International Science and Engineering Fair, Jericho had 6 finalists qualified to participate, which is more than any other school in Long Island. The research program, headed by Dr. Serena McCalla, took home a total of 5 Grand Awards and additional 2 top awards.
Of the 1,600 plus international participants, Lucas Schur and Emily Kim placed 4th, Natalia Polovon placed 3rd, and Kevin Zhu and Natasha Kovilat placed 1st in their respective categories. Further, Kevin Zhu won the Dudley R. Herkbach SIYSS Award and an all-expenses-paid trip to attend the Stockholm International Youth Science Seminar, which includes attendance at the Nobel Prize ceremonies. Natasha won the Gordon E. Moore Award for positive outcomes for future generation, along with a $50,000 scholarship. Congratulations to all participants.
On June 1st, the boys badminton team won the Long Island Badminton Championships for the 2nd year in a row. Congratulations to all athletes and coaches. This is truly an incredible feat. Along with the badminton team, on June 5th, sophomore Rena Chang finished 4th place in the New York State Golf Championships. On June 1st and 2nd, the Jericho Dance Department hosted the annual dance event Choreo. The students worked very hard and the outcome was fantastic, with families and students attending to watch their friends and family perform.
Yesterday, on June 7th, the PTA hosted a senior class party from 6 to 8 p.m. There was a plethora of fun activities and food for our seniors to enjoy, and it turned out amazing. Thank you for the PTA for hosting this event.
Earlier today, the VEX robotics teams visited the elementary school to introduce the aspiring students to robotics. It was a great way to help the elementary students get an idea of what robotics could look like in the future and to consider participating as they got older.
Earlier tonight, our school hosted our very own film night, which featured a plethora of different films produced by our own Jericho students in the Little Theater. Additionally, this weekend, 3 groups from Jericho High School will be heading to DC for the final round of National History Day after competing at the regional and state levels. Caitlin Choi and Madison Choi for group website, Kushi Patel and Emily Zhu for group board, and Henry Zhang, Ryan Wang, and Tianjiao Wang for group documentary. We wish them all of the best of luck.
Looking forward for our seniors, on June 12th from 7 to 8 p.m., there will be the Senior Awards Ceremony. Seniors, please check your emails to see if you won any awards. On June 16th, we will be having our senior breakfast from 11 to 12 p.m., graduation rehearsal on June 20th, senior prom on June 22nd from 6:30 to 11 p.m. with the Enchanted Forest theme, and finally, the high school commencement will occur on June 25th at 9 a.m. at the Tilla Center. Thank you again to all the seniors and good luck with your future endeavors.
June 13th will be the last day of classes for the high school students, with the Power School Parent Portal closing on the 16th. From June 14th to June 22nd, there will be Regents testing throughout the day. Good luck to all the students. Grades will be released to the parents on June 28th.
Thank you all again for your time. And once again, we are extremely excited to work with all of you throughout the course of the school year and get right into action as soon as school starts again. Thank you and have a great summer.
Thank you. Now for the PTA council report. I don't know if you got promoted or demoted, but Victor Manuel.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Grishman, Board of Ed members, Central Administration, faculty, staff, and community members. I am very sorry I cannot be there tonight, so I have asked Victor Manuel, me, to present my last joint PTA Council report of the year. And what a great year it has been. I am very proud of the many accomplishments by all of the Jericho PTA units. Our goal in September was to bridge the gap between all the different units. I wanted us to learn best practices from each other, share information, and have a consistent message across the different schools. As parent volunteers, we all work very hard for a common goal, to do what is best for all the students of Jericho. I believe we have accomplished that and much more this year. Some of the important highlights from PTA Council have been: we helped raise over $4,500 for the Calusa Middle School in Florida after their school was destroyed from Hurricane Ian. We ran 2 very successful parent universities attended by over 150 parents.
one in the fall that included hands-on yoga, cooking, robotics, and debate classes, and another in the spring that was a Zoom with our college alumni highlighting their first year college experiences. We suggested having speakers to come back to our schools like Dr. Stephen Dewey, initiated programs such as Career Day, and asked for presenters to come to speak to 11th grade families regarding the college essay process. We helped to improve homecoming, 5th grade events, and school trips. We created SEPTA liaisons to bring new momentum to the SEPTA PTA. We worked directly with Patrick Fogarty and the technology department to help jumpstart Parent Square, an exciting new way for us to communicate that will be rolled out in the fall. We had multiple conversations with curriculum associates, guidance counselors, school psychologists, cafeteria staff members, central administration, faculty, and more so that our voices were heard and closer relationships were formed. We gave feedback regarding summer assignments, which are now posted earlier, and asked for more ACT testing that will be offered in Jericho next year. We worked with administration to bring a new basketball hoop to the middle school tents for recess and helped increase parent communication in elementary schools by having flyers added to each student's backpacks once a month and much more. Thank you, Mr. Grishman, Board of Education, Central Administration, faculty, staff, and the Jericho parent community. It is a pleasure working with you all. Jericho is the best school. We are all very fortunate that our children could grow up and learn in such a safe and secure environment. I wish you all a restful and relaxing summer and have a good night.
Thank you. And now, Genesee, our student board representative. And again, thank you. You've been a wonderful addition to the board for this year, and we'll miss you.
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have any lengthy survey to present tonight, but because today is the last time I'll be sitting up with the board, I thought it'd be fitting to say a few thank yous. So it's been an honor having the privilege of sitting up here with you and being a voice of the student body. Thank you to the board for letting me be a representative that can contribute to and improve the Jericho community. Thank you to my advisors, Ms. Khan and Ms. Romano, and the high school administration, Mr. Cummings, Dr. Finlay, and Mr. Cohen for helping guide me. And a special thanks to Ms. Nash for helping me handle all things board related, especially for sneaking me out of those really, really long meetings. It's been a pleasure getting to know the board and the school administration, and an honor to work with all of you. I'll be passing the baton off to next year's student representative, Caitlin Choi. I know her personally for years, and knowing her work ethic, I'm 100% confident in her ability to act as a voice for the student body.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caitlin Choi, like Jenna said, and I'll be serving as a General Student Council's representative to the Board of Education for the 2023 to 24 school year. Throughout my academic career, I've always sought to act on behalf of my peers, and I'm thrilled for the opportunity to expand upon my previous experiences and build upon the work that Jenna started. It was an honor to meet all of you, and I look forward to working with you throughout the next school year.
Superintendent's report.
Our attendance as of June the 2nd was 3,352 students. Couple of additional comments. Let me talk a little bit about our smoke event. Obviously, another unexpected curveball that came to the school districts in the New York metropolitan area. Monday into Tuesday, and Tuesday into Wednesday into Thursday. We carefully monitored the AQI in our school district, spoke to our school district physician. We received regular updates from the Nassau County Department of Health, the New York State Department of Health, the New York State Department DEC of Environmental Control, and the State Education Department. And again, based upon their advice, we made some decisions in terms of keeping our kids in school buildings yesterday and today as well. Again, many districts in Nassau County were fortunate in that they significantly upgraded their HVAC systems during COVID. And very frankly, as a result of that, the amount of pollutants that seeped into our buildings and the buildings of most of our neighbors was minimal. Again, as a result, we've had to cancel many end of the year outdoor events. And the rescheduling of those events obviously has been a challenge for our principals in terms of finding available dates to reschedule and to try and find dates that did not have conflicts. Again, just about an impossible feat. So in terms of some of our rescheduling events, there are conflicts with some of the events that we have rescheduled, and there are some events that, because of the cancellations, have not been able to be rescheduled. But again, we ask our school community to understand that the last 2 or 3 days has been a challenge, and our principals are doing the best job they can, firstly to protect the safety and well-being of students and staff, and then trying to reschedule the end of the year activities as best as we could. We're basically the latest results or forecasts that we've received is that the conditions should become significantly better overnight into the morning hours, but we will continue to review the AQI tonight and into tomorrow morning as we make any decisions regarding our activities tomorrow. Also wanted to share that we just received this week there are annual reviews of school lunch programs. We just received our report for our annual review of our school lunch program, and we came with flying colors, the report on our school lunch program, which covers basically every aspect. Probably the best news related to our school lunch program is that we, as the community and board is aware, we had to go out and rebid our school lunch contract for the coming year. We had concern that we were going to lose Aramark based upon what we think was such an incredible job that they did this past year. Aramark was the successful bidder, and we will be awarding the bid to Aramark for the coming year. The bid potentially will cover us for the next 5 years. Feedback, and again, I know that we've all heard feedback from our students, our staff, and our parents about how pleased we are with the job that Aramark has done this year since winter time, and we really look forward to our continued relationship with Aramark. I also wanted to briefly mention, and I know I've had it on my list, and it's something that we will schedule for a presentation sometime next year, but our Wellness Coalition, which has been up and running for 6 or 7 years now, had an incredible year. Again, they meet on a monthly basis and plan many of the activities to support our students, the health of our students, the mental health of our students, and the overall health, and had several speakers in this year. Again, Steve Dewey being probably the highlight of our Wellness Coalition activities this year. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the members of the Wellness Committee, our members, our staff members, parents, volunteers, members of the school community, members of police, and again, under the leadership of Ray Velez, our high school social worker, who's done an incredible job. So just a shout out to him. Thank you.
A report for the.
Wait, before, just a couple of questions. Just in the last week, I guess May 31st, Newsday had an article featuring our director of IT, Mr. Fogarty, talking about AI and specifically ChatGPT. Are we planning over the summer, over the next year to get more involved in talking to parents and students about the benefits and risks of AI? And are we looking at some ways of incorporating that into our teaching programs or our classes?
there has been a great deal of discussion within the educational community about AI. Again, it's the benefits and the non-benefits of AI. Our school district, and we actually have a planned meeting coming up, I believe, next week, where we will be having some discussions about AI. And we do plan over the next several months, probably into next school year, to look at AI, how AI can be incorporated in a positive fashion into our school district. So to answer your question, Sam, yes.
And do we have things, student guidance on what's permissible for them in terms of whether it's ChatGPT or any other products, and as it would play into plagiarism or any other type of policy like that?
Patrick Fogarty is leading the charge and doing our research, and will be first step meeting with administrators to share the research that he's doing around the use of AI.
Great. Not as a plug for Newsday, don't love it, but on May 30th, Newsday had an article about how New York State was downgrading social studies, including history and civics, by eliminating those Regents exams in school rankings. Now, I'm sure, Dr. Sundberg and no one else here agrees with that downgrade. And just as the leading district on Long Island in New York State, are we out there leading at the forefront of trying to emphasize the need for those two areas, or one area, if you want to just look at a social studies, to remain leading out there?
We have been loud and outspoken to not support the proposal to downgrade social studies. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting at 10:30 tomorrow morning with Regent Tillis and two other superintendents, and the singular item on the agenda is social studies.
Thank you very much.
An update on the DEI committee, Dr. Sundberg and Dan Salzman.
As we begin, I just would like to thank both gentlemen for their work this year. Again, challenge to get up and running with all of the other issues on both of their plates. Both gentlemen took the charge of co-chairing the DEI committee, and I just, on behalf of the district, appreciate the amount of time and energy that you've put into such a high priority. So thank you, and we appreciate hearing from you this evening.
Thank you. Dan and I are co-chairs of the committee, and we see each other ourselves as facilitators. So the remarks about the humble work we did this year really represent, I guess, a consensus of the entire committee. So I'll try not to go beyond that. First thing we want to emphasize is this is a new committee, and our aim for the first meeting and probably for the first year was to establish trust and good norms for discussing sensitive topics. We introduced ourselves to each other. We all talked about approaching discussions with open minds, with a willingness to listen to each other's perspectives. We began a year-long process of having conversations about issues that are in dispute. We were 16 people from different backgrounds and perspectives, and to some extent, we see this committee having been a laboratory on how to establish trust and good norms for discussing sometimes sensitive topics related to the Board of Education's DEI policy. We shared concerns. So there were members who wanted to discuss political dimensions of this work. We agreed on the importance of creating a psychologically and emotionally safe space for all of our members. And that includes a certain degree of confidentiality about individual comments or reflections. We spent more than one meeting unpacking the board's DEI policy. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, by the way. So we took a close look at that and spent part of another meeting looking at mutually reinforcing language among the board's policy, the Danielson rubric, the learning standards of several academic areas, and the New York State culturally responsive framework. We wanted to be sure that we were working within, I don't want to use the word regime, but we're working within standards and expectations from New York State and from the board. We shared anecdotal evidence about what was going on in the school. Dr. Salzman helped create an archive of images from all 5 buildings, of what's going on in classrooms, what's going on in hallways, to give ourselves a sense of the feel of the place. We looked at the results of a student survey that has been taken actually for a number of years in our social science and now our AP research classes. So we had some sort of big picture of student perceptions of school climate. The images we looked at and discussed, the anecdotes that we recalled for ourselves, this survey all give a picture of a generally positive climate where students feel included and welcome and heard. However, the survey we were working from only looked at student opinions, and we discussed the possibility that there are certain subsets of students that are so small that their voices may not be heard. So we began discussions about whether we need to dig deeper and use a more robust instrument to assess school climate, and to include other constituencies in addition to students. I think we think it's the consensus of the committee that next year we should do something like that. There were questions at various times in the year about all areas of DEI, but there were questions about gender that sometimes left us a little bit unsure about where we are in Jericho, and we discussed whether we need clearer guidelines on this topic or whether it's better for our approaches to unfold more organically. We don't have a recommendation about that. It's just something we're going to look at more closely, as I'm sure other people will. We're not ready to recommend that all staff receive training from an outside consultant or a professional developer, but we might want to recommend something like that for committee members next year. There was discussion about whether we or someone should be communicating basic information about DEI and culturally responsive work going on in the district, and there's a lot of it. There are members of the community who might not know what it means, starting with the initials, and might need a deeper understanding of what board policy is. We've been discussing whether we should produce a video, or someone should produce a video or a slideshow or a new section for the district website. I'd say there's a feeling among the committee members that we are ready to create or provide something more tangible next year that not only explains why we need to affirm cultural identities, to elevate historically marginalized voices, to provide all students a sense of belonging, but also to say that there are many ways that this is already getting done, and these need to be seen and I think appreciated. We have not abandoned the idea that we may need to create subcommittees, and I know we talked about that earlier in the year, to look more closely at some issues that we didn't dig deeply into this year, hiring for diversity being one. We paid most of our attention to teaching and learning and to general school climate, and to some extent to family and community engagement. And although we discussed issues of workforce diversity, there was not a lot of that discussion, and that may be something for a subcommittee to look at, or maybe something for the committee itself to dedicate more time to and to gather data on. Similarly, student supports and discipline and wellness might be something for a subcommittee to look at, or something that we need to work out more closely between our committee and building administrators. I realize we have not given you anything in writing. I'd be happy to do that, but that's what we have so far.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your efforts this year. In terms of the makeup, I think there's like 12.5 members of your committee.
16, that would be about a dozen and a half.
6. Okay, so 16. Do you envision the makeup of the committee being identical next year, or is there going to be turnover for whatever reason, people dropping off, people getting added?
The last meeting that we had, which was last week, we discussed that very thing. We are definitely going to have some people who are not returning next year. And we've discussed that we want to continue to have a diversity of voices on the committee. And we would need to be taking on new members next year. And some of them would need to be students because we have students who are not returning next year. And we've discussed increasing the number of students. So the answer is yes.
And do you envision that being a recruiting process, or are you going to run sort of a general tell us that you want to be with us type of program like you had earlier this year?
Excellent question. I don't know. It was not part of our discussion of whether or not we would recruit. We might. It might make sense. I could make a case for that. I don't want to speak for the committee, and I would probably think Dan and I would want to talk to central office about that before we took any concrete steps.
Sure. And how many times did you meet this year?
7.
Thank you. And last, you talked about one goal for 2023, 2024. Is there a bigger, longer term program, or is it sort of still in its developmental stage?
We're still in a figuring out stage. The committee under board policy right now needs to exist forever. So I think we need to take on, I think the committee will feel that we need to take on smaller achievable goals as we go, rather than take on the entire scope of the very robust policy.
And finally, are you and Dr. Salzman continuing as co-chairs of this committee next year?
I can't speak for anyone else. I plan to remain with the committee next year.
We can let Dr. Salzman have the microphone for 2 seconds, Dr. Sundberg.
I'm available.
Thank you.
And by the way, I also spoke with Regent Tillis about the same issue last week.
I apologize. I'm not feeling well, so Jen's going to take over the rest of the meeting. Antibiotic.
Feel better, Joe. Okay, so Victor, are you going to do the next part? Thank you.
I'm going to discuss, feel better, Joe. I'm going to discuss CARISA, which is the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. And I'm going to do that in conjunction with the American Rescue Plan. They were 2 federal laws that were put into place back in 2021 to primarily looking at learning loss and what districts could do to help in that regard. The CARISA funding was $566,273, and the American Rescue Plan was $1,272,690. The CARISA is fully spent, and we're still in the process with the American Rescue Plan. And I'm going to go through the categories of spending that we agreed to do back in 2021 when those grants became available to school districts, where we are with that, and what we're looking at in the future. So some of the areas we looked at for learning loss was to begin summer school programs at the high school and the middle school, a grade 6 summer program, an after-school program, K-5, after-school programs for the middle school and high school, book clubs, kindergarten through 8th grade, supplies and technology such as smart boards. All those programs we didn't have previous to COVID, and we felt were the best use of the funds, considering the purpose was to go for learning loss and what we could do to help our students who were coming out of COVID. We're doing a lot of remote and coming back into the buildings. Originally, we were planning to complete the after-school programs through the end of this year and do the summer school in 2023, and then the funds would be depleted by then. I am happy to report we're able to extend for an additional year. All of the programs I listed into the 23-24 school year, and in addition to extend the summer program to the summer of 2024. And we feel pretty confident that we will have the funds within these two grants to continue those programs. That's where we're at this moment. I'll take any questions from the board. None? Okay.
No questions.
The next item is the foundation aid plan. Now, the foundation aid, you probably heard in the news the last couple of years, districts are now in the 23-24 school year will be fully funded. And any increase that you received above 10% of your previous allocation, you're required to put together a foundation aid plan. That plan had to coincide with some of the requirements that the state put forth. We did a plan for this school year that we're in a year ago, and I'm presenting the plan for the 23-24 school year. Again, each of these categories fall in line with what the New York State Education Department required of us. So reducing class size. So during the 2021 school year, during COVID, we remember the first year we cut the classes in half, basically. But at the end of COVID, when we came out of COVID and currently, and we're planning to do that in the future, at the elementary level, previously class sizes were upwards of 25 and 27. Now K through 5, it's maxed out at 23. These funds will help us to continue keeping those class sizes at 23. Keeping the tax levy increases minimal. We have done that. In fact, the current year that we're in, they were flat. And next year, our tax levy increase is significantly below our tax cap. Addressing student social emotional health. The district, we added an additional school counselor to the high school to provide additional emotional support to our students during the current year, during 2022-23, and we plan on continuing that into 23-24, which reduced the counselor to student ratio. During the 23-24 year, we added it to the budget for next year to add a school counselor for K-5 students. This will provide increased opportunities, social emotional opportunities for our elementary students. The funding will also allow us to maintain the additional psychologist that we hire to support our students' social and emotional health at the secondary level. I think we hired that person about 2 years ago. We also developed a strong partnership with the New York State approved mental health clinic to expedite psychiatric evaluations for students and families, as well as provide individual counseling services. Another category that we looked at that was on the list was providing supports for students who are not meeting or at risk of not meeting state learning standards in core academic subject areas. The additional foundation aid funding allows us to maintain support classes in grades 6 through 11 in math and ELA for students who are at risk for not meeting state standards. The funding also allows us to maintain our math and science specialists at our elementary schools in order to provide enrichment and remediation for all of our students K through 5. Another category, providing adequate resources to English language learners and students with disabilities. That's the overall title of that particular area. We are going to be maintaining all of our co-teaching classes to support students with disabilities on site. We have exceeded New York State requirements for students in need of English as a new language, and will continue that with this additional funding. We will be hiring a full-time English as a new language facilitator during the 23-24 year. That was part of the budget. The facilitator will meet with families new to the district, evaluate students' status to determine appropriate class placement and supports needed for the students. This facilitator will also provide professional development to our staff to improve the pedagogy. And those are the areas that we focused on, again, to justify the additional foundation aid for the school district, and I'll take any questions from the board.
One quick question on the ENL. We
Sure.
still anticipate being able to incorporate all of those students into our regular curriculum classes, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jen, if you want me to discuss the audit committee met a little while ago? Sure. Yeah, okay. Because that was next on the list anyway. The audit committee met prior to the board meeting. Our internal auditor, Lauren Gunzo from the firm Naraki and Smith, provided the board with the reports on payroll that they did during the year. Fortunately, there were no comments or recommendations. Additionally, they're in the process of doing the risk assessment that is done every year around this time, and they will provide the board with details of that assessment at the September meeting. Additionally, Mike from Cullen and Danowski met with the board, and every year at this time, they are required to do an entrance meeting with the audit committee, which basically gives them a timeline of the external audit report, which is an audit of our financial statements. And they will continue their work during the summer, and at the September board meeting, provide the results of the external audit to the Board of Education, and in addition to the public during the September Board of Education meeting. And that's it on the audit committee update.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the approval of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education make any necessary corrections and move the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting dated May 18, 2023, and the executive session dated May 25th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Divya? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And now we have an opportunity for public to be heard. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please tell us your name and affiliation if you are representing a specific group. If you would like your statement to be included in our board minutes, you must hand in a written copy of your remarks to our district clerk, Victor Manuel, immediately before speaking. As always, public discussion on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or right to due process or those of others could in some way be violated is prohibited. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zara Malik. I'm a senior at the high school. That's the last time you can hear that. I just wanted to come up here and say some thank yous because this is my last meeting ever. And, well, not ever, but I just wanted to say to the board, thank you to the board for the last 6 months of listening to all my questions, comments, interviews, and thank you for not only listening to what I have to say, but comprehending it and enacting it into policy. And 2 special shout outs to Mr. Grishman first. Thank you for taking time out of your day for interview requests, meetings, lunches, and more. Thank you for sharing your iconic cab driving stories and for reminding me the power of standing up for what you believe in. And lastly, for teaching me what a great leader looks like. And lastly, to Dr. Chufo, oh my God, this is gonna make me cry. You have single-handedly changed my life. As someone who is often told to keep my head down and to keep going, thank you for giving me a place at the table and for caring about me from day one. You will forever be one of the most impactful people in my high school experience. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for every word of advice and encouragement you've given me from literally day one of when we met, which was literally in the fall. Like we did not interact any other time. You will forever and always be my in-school grandpa. Thank you. So thank you, everyone.
I think I saw a tear rolling down his cheek. That was really nice. Anyone else? Yes, one more.
Good evening, Ira Chekla, Jericho resident. There was a mention of the unified basketball at the last meeting. Those of us who've seen it, it's been spectacular. Unfortunately, Peggy Rudis has left here, and I wanted a little shout out for her because her work as a parent on special ed committees and starting being part of the inclusion process here from the start. The trajectory of the special ed program has now included a unified basketball, and hats off to everybody who was involved in that. I wanted to ask the board to perhaps not bring up new policy 3220 tonight, particularly now that Jill's left. We have a current policy on public expression at board meetings that's a total of 3 sentences and includes 66 words. And the proposed policy has 2.5 pages, of which there are a number of sentences that approach the number of words in our current policy. This is our building. This is our building. This is the people's building. We just had an election where thousands of dollars were spent to oppose candidates or candidate who people thought was fighting against free speech. Thousands of dollars. I would have expected there to be some outrage from some of those people who spent all that money on Section 3220 tonight. We've had an open policy here at Jericho for a really, 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 really long time. The proposed policy makes us look like some of those countries where people get chopped up for saying things that are unpopular. Unpopular is free speech. I ask you to re-examine 3220. I ask you not to take a look at it tonight. I ask that it never be on the agenda in its current form. Never. I ask the community that's listening to this to take a look at the new proposed 3220. It's on the agenda. It's not a place, it's not a policy for the place that we have here.
Thank you. We actually will be tabling 3220 because Jill wasn't feeling well, so. Anyone else? No one else wants to come up. Victor, I believe there was a question sent to BOE. Would you like to read that? Thank you.
Jen, it's Denise in the back. I actually have it. It comes to my email. Victor doesn't have it. Is it okay if I read it? Okay. Yep.
Okay, so you're going to read it?
Yep.
Okay.
This question came in from Sherilyn Weiss. Why would you change the Adventureland trip from today, understandable due to air quality, to a date that conflicts with the geometry regents and the Seaman graduation where kids have siblings? That date doesn't work. You're forcing it to work, and now kids have to go late on a second bus or miss the trip. That's not fair. And that's not a solution by causing bigger discord. If you are rescheduling something, it really shouldn't cause further conflict. Chad said parents called requesting it not be June 14th due to Regents being on June 15th, and he honored that. I didn't know I had to call and request it not to conflict with Seaman graduation. Not one parent's opinion should be more valid than another's. It's not fair how you have adjusted this trip. Sherilyn. That was the only question.
Thank you.
Again, I think I made some comments earlier that there definitely was a significant challenge in rescheduling events. Rescheduling Adventureland was a challenge, and I know that Chad had quite the challenge in rescheduling Adventureland. I think there was a compromise that was suggested where the kids who would be attending the Ratner Seaman moving up ceremony and the geometry regents, we would bus them to Adventureland and they would wind up missing an hour of the day's event. So I think that is a workable compromise that Chad put together. Again, understanding that there was no date that wouldn't cause conflicts one place or another.
So is that, that's set? There's no way to change that data at this point, right?
That date was the date that worked best with the fewest conflicts. So again, if we're sending our 8th grade kids to Adventureland, that was the best option. Chad, am I covering it all?
There's actually only one other date that Adventureland's open that there are not state exams taking place. That's the 14th. The 14th is the date immediately preceding the algebra regions and the earth science regions, in which approximately 200 kids are taking their first regents exams, the last chance to ask questions of teachers and review material. So, you know, the decision was balancing those end of year milestone events versus academic preparation. And I guess we sided with academic preparation and keeping the 200 kids here for the regents exams to prepare on that last day. And regretfully, you know, there's tough dilemmas for a small number of kids who have siblings at Seaman. I think there's 8 kids who have siblings at Seaman that could take a later bus. That's how we decided.
Okay, thank you. I guess we're going to move on to unfinished business. We're looking at adoption of policy 1337, duties of the school physician. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following policy. Do I have a motion? Motion, Chris. Second, Sam? Okay, any discussion?
Now I got it. This was the one where we talked about that we're keeping nurse practitioners who are then supervising nurse practitioners. So again, I know we cleaned it up a little bit, but duties of the school physician / nurse practitioners shall include, and then you go to B, supervise routine examinations by the school nurse practitioner. It won't make a bit of difference to the meaning of it, but if we're trying to go through a process of cleaning up our policies, we should just clean them up.
There you go. So, Mr. Provo, what we can do is then eliminate in B, school nurse practitioner, and that should clean it up.
They supervising, or are they just conducting routine examinations in? I don't know who does the routine examination, so it's.
In New York State, it can be one or the other. The nurse practitioner can practice independently.
Under the supervision of a physician.
Even a nurse practitioner can perform, yeah.
Which sentence says supervises? Supervises routine examinations, but also says conducts physical exams for all bus drivers. And like they're using 2 different sets of language. So I guess. Yes, yes.
Who does our routine examinations of school children?
I believe it's most recently, I believe it was an actual physician. But I think this policy allows for the physician, his or her, authorized nurse practitioner. And again, in New York State, the nurse practitioner could perform a school physical independently.
Whatever it is, I just want it in the policy. Let's say it. I don't know what it is. So.
Do we want to make any changes or are we moving on?
I heard the recommended change is to change B to now read supervises routine examinations of school children to detect the presence of contagious diseases and physical defects. That's the one change I heard.
Okay. Anyone else?
Do you have any other proposal on that, Sam, with respect to the language?
I don't know what the facts are, so I can't propose the language.
What facts?
I'm fine with you take out nurse practitioners, and I think hopefully Mr. Powers thinks that's a small enough change that we continue with the second read tonight, and we can just move on to our next policy.
Are you questioning any of the facts though? I mean,
No, I don't know the facts, so I'm not questioning them. I was just sort of
Okay.
saying it didn't make sense that you had a nurse practitioner, supervisory nurse practitioner. It was purely
I agree with
that.
you. Yes.
Okay, all in favor after we make that change for the second reading? Okay, great. Moved. Adoption of policy 7680, independent education evaluations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following policy. Do I have a motion? Sam, second. Chris, thank you. Any discussion? No one? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And on our agenda, we have the acceptance of the first reading policy 3220, public expression at meetings. We are going to be tabling that, but can I please have I guess, do I read it? Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the first reading of the following policy. Do I have a motion? Yeah, I think, are we just tabling it? Do I have to make a motion? Table?
You're just tabling.
Okay, so I think
Right.
we're going to be tabling it unless there's any other discussion or comment. Okay, we're moving on, and hopefully we'll come back to that in July. Do we need to vote on tabling?
You do.
Okay, does everyone agree on tabling this? Thank you. Next policy is acceptance of first reading 3270, community use of school facilities. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the first reading of the following policy. Can I have a motion? Sam? Second? Someone? Can I have a second? Divya? Any questions?
Just for permitted uses, I'm having a hard time finding a reason why our school grounds would need to be used by other groups while school is in session. The third paragraph, it says, such use may take place during school hours only if, in the opinion of the Board of Education, the use will not be disruptive of normal school operations. I don't feel that our grounds should ever be open to outside groups.
I agree.
When school is in session. So if that sentence could be removed.
And historically, that's been the case, Divya.
Just for, I was thinking of it more from a security issue. We would never want any outsiders in the buildings while our students are in here. So
what I can do is I can work on a revision where that would not be permitted, and that will likely be just deleting that sentence.
Let them go.
any other comments?
So this policy sort of got me a little confused as I was going through it. Are we saying now at this point that only community groups are able to use our facilities?
Well, it actually defines who is eligible to use it. Community groups, and that's defined on page 1, Sam.
Yeah, no, at the bottom of the page.
Yep.
But upstairs, it sort of talks about non-school-based organizations should be available to the community for specific uses that will not interfere with educational activities, and non-school organizations may use school buildings and grounds. That's in the first paragraph. Where it says non-school-based organizations on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the 7th line of the first paragraph, that again is referring to only community organizations that are non-school based?
That's how I read it. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the third paragraph under permitted uses, we're eliminating that and taking that away. Is that what we said?
I'm eliminating the reference to using these facilities during school hours, which is what Divya raised and Jennifer agreed with.
I'd like to get Jill's input on this when she returns. You want to table this for next month?
Well, I think I'd like to make some progress on it, at least if we're here. I mean, if
we
don't
can
wanna make
discuss it
progress-
by all means.
Well, I mean, I think we're going to have enough changes that we're not going to be able to take a first read vote on it anyway. But
Fair enough. Okay.
Actually, Mr. Powers, before we get to that, can you just explain a little bit, because I know you weren't at our meeting in May, but according to what was said by Mr. Goodstadt, a copy of this or a draft of this was sent to the district for review, and that it didn't properly reflect our April meeting, so that it wasn't presented to the board in May. Is that what happened?
I think a policy was developed. This policy was also written by Steve Goodstadt. He frankly looked to other jurisdictions similarly situated. This is very similar to the Syosset language and the Herrick's language as well. And he then revamped the entire thing to make this into a 7-page document. So this is far more expansive than the discussion by the Board of Education at a prior meeting.
No, I think I understood that, but I think what he had said last month was that whatever he had originally drafted did not properly reflect our April meeting conversation. And it was that what happened? And so who judged that it didn't reflect the April conversation? Because there's like stuff here, as you said, it became a 7-page document. I'm not sure it necessarily reflects our April conversation, just because, as you said, there's just so much to it at this point.
Sure. So I was at the April meeting. I took the various comments back and forth, and I then worked on with Steve, developing some kind of a policy that I thought reflected what you guys talked about in April. When it was discussed in May, we then went back to the drawing board and came up with this new policy that's more expansive to cover a lot of different things. The exact logistics of what was provided to the district, I don't have an answer for you on that, sir.
Got it. Okay, so going back to just the specific things, on page number 2, fourth paragraph, fifth paragraph, it says no school district building will be permitted to be used after 9 p.m. during the school year. Again, I may be misremembering things. I do believe there are activities that go on in the school that are community-based, specifically sports events, whether they be JAA or men's leagues, that go well past 9 o'clock. I would think that we would have to adjust that. I defer to the superintendent as to what time is the appropriate time to be put into that, but 9 o'clock I do not think works for many of our sports leagues.
I would agree.
Any
So, sir,
suggestion as to a time, Mr. Superintendent?
10, 10:30?
10:30, Hank?
Oh,
I believe we had 11 o'clock on our original.
Yeah, what's the latest that the men's basketball league plays till? Probably 10:30, 11 maybe. What time? 10:30.
So why don't we
Thank
put
you.
11 to be
So let's
safe?
put 11 to be safe.
Right before that, where it says the Board of Ed may restrict use on school grounds specific times and locations as follows. Now, is everything after that a sub-bullet of that paragraph? Or how many of those are sub-bullets of the Board of Education may restrict?
I take that down to the line just before the superintendent or designee reserves the discretion to deny. So I take it all the way down to sub 1, 2, and 3, sir.
Got it. And just another thing hung up on the JA, number 2 under priority, where it says Jericho Sports Leagues as a capitalized thing. Is that referring to what we were talking about with the JA and all the men's leagues? So sports leagues, I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite broad.
Okay. Is it totally necessary to reference the U.S. Constitution in this document? To the Establishments Clause? It seemed like it was a bit all encompassing.
Right. Now, I would leave that. You're required to respect the Establishment Clause. That's from the United States Constitution. I would leave that, sir.
Okay. Moving on to the next page. First full line, determination of the superintendent of schools regarding an application shall be final. Does that mean the board does not get to review those decisions?
This is Hank drawing upon the policy, making his decision. And then part of the policy also indicates that he has to then provide you with a list or with information as to who used the facilities as well. But in terms of the final decision, according to this policy as drafted 3270, it's the superintendent's decision.
But isn't every decision of the superintendent reviewable by the board?
If Hank denies something, the requester can then come to the Board of Education for relief.
And again, I think this is, and I defer to my other board members to correct my memory, I think this was in conflict with what was actually discussed at the April meeting, which precipitated this whole conversation to begin with. And Mrs. Vartanoff shaking her head. I don't know if Dr. Balachandra or Dr. Foresto concur with my recollection of the April meeting or not.
I don't think we wanted to change that so much as to make this policy more outlined as to who could use and who could not use the grounds. I think we all agreed that we didn't want to be responsible for every single event that came to the school, and that should be at the discretion of the superintendent, but we wanted better guidelines.
Right. That is correct, Divya. But I also remember, not that I remember, I'm reading this policy and I feel like it's pretty contradictory to the original policy. That's why I'm having a little bit of a hard time. The original policy said the Board of Education is the one who is in charge of the school grounds ultimately. And so this policy says the superintendent, so it's kind of like the opposite.
I think Hank had said at that time that, anything that didn't fall into something very defined, that he would come to us and,
Right.
bring it to our attention and we could have a conversation about it. But I think we had agreed to leave it at the discretion of the superintendent. And that
Right.
would be my strong preference.
It's true, but does the policy actually say this?
This
It's a
line
lo-
is very clear on page 3. The determination of the superintendent shall be final. What Sam just has is whether or not his decisions are subject to appeal. Parents can always appeal to the Board of Education. This makes it very clear that this is superintendent's call.
I mean, yes, I think to Dr. Foresto's point, we're going to have to take this up again, but I'll go back and watch it. This is in exact opposition to what we talked about in April. And look, there's two issues here. One, given that this policy is now limited to community organizations, I think that takes away a little bit of the angst, but I believe, and it was always my understanding, that decisions were always going to be reviewable by the board. And the second part of it is, we've already talked about potentially letting outside or non-community organizations use the facilities, which isn't reflected here. So if we're going to work that back in, then absent putting this final discretion at the board level, we're going to be right back to where we were before our April meeting. So I'm not quite sure what is going on here, because I'm pretty sure that the April meeting, the concern was that there was a use of the property that was inconsistent with the existing policy, and we were trying to write a policy that would clearly give discretion, final discretion, final determination to the board should they want it.
But Sam, didn't we just say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, that all decisions would ultimately be reviewable or appealable to the Board of Education? I mean, I think you're shaking your head, Sam. I'm sorry.
No, that's not what he said. Yeah.
That is what I said. Yeah, if Hank were to say, no, you're not going to use the facility, that
Right.
requester can then write a letter to the board in the form of an appeal saying, we'd like to use it, and here are the reasons why. Can you take a look at the issue? That would be the process they'd be entitled to.
Right.
And I just need direction from the board as to whether you want me to build that into the policy or you leave it within the discretion of the superintendent of schools, and that's the end of it. But the bottom line is, if someone is disagreeing with the decision made by the superintendent, they can go to the board.
Right, but I think the question that we had and the problem that we had before was we were saying if the superintendent lets any group use the facilities, but we object to that, does the board have that right? And as you're saying it's the superintendent's final decision.
So if Mr. Grishman granted a request to Group A and the board opposed that, the board has the authority to say, these are our facilities. Yes.
That was kind of my understanding. I mean, ultimately, I would think that the Board of Education would have the right to review any decision for or against. Well, that's why I contemplated tabling this to begin with. Again, I'd like Jill's input, and I think this needs work. So.
We know it needs work, but we can do some of that work. We're not looking for a vote. But what I'm trying to understand, I think you just agreed with what I said, that let's go back. The issue became.
I do agree in part with what you said, Sam. I think ultimately, again, I don't want to personally micromanage simple requests for use of building grounds. I mean, I trust Hank has the discretion to decide, what's appropriate and what might be questionable. If there was something that was the least bit questionable, I would expect him to come to us and have that conversation prior to granting authorization. Again, given the sensitivities of recent events, and we had talked about, more closely vetting requests for use of district facilities, I believe, and I certainly hope that everybody's on the same page with respect to this.
With that part, we are, and especially if it's a community organization. Again, I think this needs to be written more clearly. I certainly believe it can be done more succinctly by 50% to make it clear. But I think what I heard you just say, Dr. Foresto, is that yes, look, I don't want to go backwards from where we were. Under our old policy, the board needed to approve use of facilities. And one of the issues was that there were members of the board, I believe several, not just two, who took issue with what happened on that day, that approval was not sought. And again, we fortunately still have in here meetings sponsored by political organizations, though I don't really get the definition of that, and that's even a New York State law. But at the end of the day, your policy, this draft policy does not say it's ultimately the board has the discretion to say no. And I think that's the part that we're missing. And the second part of it, which goes back to the application requirements, at least 50% of the participants must be school district residents. I don't know from a feasibility fact how that's going to get proven or disproven, or it's like, oh, when we planned this thing, we thought it was going to be 50%, but now it ended up being 25%. And look, I want our facilities to be used by as many people as reasonably possible and feasible. And so it would prevent, and I'm not looking to get yelled at, teachers running some type of professional education here. But I think those things, as you had pointed out several months ago, Dr. Fresto, just need to be properly vetted. And I think at the end of the day, that's where you need to have the board come in, especially if, as we've discussed, that we're going to probably allow non-community groups, and certainly groups with less than 50% Jericho residents, use our facilities.
Sam, I agree with you on most of this. And again, with respect to the 50%, I mean, listen, there's a lot of organizations that may not have, that want to have an event that may not be attended by, 50% Jericho residents that are, doing something wonderful or something that's going to, really, take us to the greater good. And again, that's what Jericho is all about. There's going to be people in this community. So if we as Jericho schools can be a part of that, and we want to be a part of that, there may be instances where we do want to host something where the Jericho residents may be in the minority, but again, it's the right thing to do, and it's something great that we want to be a part of.
Right, and that's why we should give Mr. Powers some direction tonight as to how it should be. And I think, and please, Dr. Fresto, tell me when you disagree with what I say. One, community groups should be able to use this facility. Mm-hmm. Two, non-community groups, we need to carve out some types of more stringent restrictions for them to use our facilities.
So let me give you an example, and seek your guidance, or Chris. For example, we have a very strong relationship with several universities, post-secondary institutions. We regularly get a request from Harvard to have a new student meeting in our facility. We have a request right now from Vanderbilt University to use our facility for a new student orientation this summer, where there will be one or two Jericho students, but the vast majority will not be. It's not a community organization, but it's something that we've always approved in the past in maintaining and building a relationship with several post-secondary institutions. And again, in the past, I have approved those requests from universities to use our facility.
And I would be hard pressed to understand how anyone would object to that usage. But I would simply add to that that I also don't think Harvard's calling you up on 24 hours notice saying we want to bring all of our new students to you. They're probably planning that out a month or two in advance, which would be plenty of time to quickly send an email, or we'll certainly have a board meeting from the time you find out about that event to the time it actually occurs. There will be probably multiple board meetings in between where we could simply say, yes, absolutely. Or we could say, look, for the 2023-2024 school year, if there's a school that wants to host a new student event, we can do it. But I think that, as you'd like to use a slippery slope, as long as we have it in there where the board is the final arbiter, certainly for non-community events. And you know what? If someone has to do it on 24 hours notice, they're going to have to go to some other place if we can't get the board to convene. But absolutely, that's why I'm in favor, Mr. Superintendent, of adding in non-community groups into this policy. Like, this policy says only community groups. I agree with you wholeheartedly that we should have non-community groups using our facilities, because it's beneficial not only for them, it's beneficial for our school district.
Sam, I just want to, are you advocating that requests would then have to be presented to us for our approval?
Yes. No. Let's be clear. Non-community event. Absolutely on a non-community event, 100%. 100 out of 100 times.
I'm not so sure I agree with that.
Well, then let's give Mr. Powers instruction as to when it's not, and he can write that into the policy.
So again, Hank made the example. Harvard wants to come in, and granted, maybe Harvard said they were doing something at Half Hollow Hills, and for some reason that couldn't occur. There was smoke in the building, whatever. And now we have 2 weeks' notice. We don't have a board meeting scheduled. And they come to Hank and say, Hank, you've posted in the past. We want to have a program for accepted students. We're going to deny that, or we're because we can't meet. I mean,
I find it hard to believe that three of us are not going to be able to get into a room in a 2 week window to say absolutely go ahead and do that. I mean, I think that is really not feasible. And you know what? If that's what happens, that's what happens.
I think we're micromanaging at that point.
We are, but the problem is if you don't put it, and we're not micromanaging it. We're coming with a policy, and the policy is not
But the
micromanaging.
policy is in my mind. Again, we have to give some credit to the superintendent. Listen, if there are decisions made that make us question that, we could always revisit it. But I don't think we're going to see that.
I'm sorry. That's why we're having this. That's exactly why we're having this conversation, because there was an event that made us question it. And again, it came out that the policy, in some people's views, not mine, some people's views, the policy was not crystal clear. And here's the thing, as I said, Dr. Foresto, I have no problem saying if a school, if a university, a post-secondary education school wants to host a new student event at our school, I have no problem at the beginning of the school year saying that type of event is approved regardless of the institution. If it was that a troop of Girl Scouts who's not Jericho wants to have a meeting in our school, absolutely, they can have a meeting in our facility without having to have a new board meeting. But again, we could do that at the beginning of each school year as part of our reorg meeting or part of our first meeting, saying, look, these are the events that the superintendent has full discretion on in terms of making. And if it's something that doesn't fall into those categories, you know what? Yes, maybe we'll miss an event. It's okay. It's okay. I'd rather err on the side of caution, given the last 6 months, than err on the side of not. And when you said that's just basically it. And I think we're agreeing with this in terms of, you think I'm trying to put some hard and fast rules here. I'm trying to put in rules that everybody can live by and that we're not going to be surprised again.
That's what I take issue with. I just think it's overreaching. Excuse me? I do agree with Ira on this, yes.
So, I mean, Mr. Checkler has suggestions to do it, that's fine.
I just throw it out there, again, the exact language might need to be worked on, but if you gave the superintendent discretion, gave him discretion to make those non-community group decisions, there might be a method by which you can informally inform the board and stating that he's planning on granting the discretion unless he hears an objection otherwise. And at that point, it might have to become formal. But again, in most cases, it's not going to be formal. It's going to be a rare instance.
And I'm fine with that, provided there's enough of a notice period, that it's not a 24-hour or in certain cases, a 2-hour notice period. Like that would have to be, look, time for people that they're not sitting there, sitting at their computer, staring at their phone saying, oh, just got an email for a presentation that's going to happen in 30 minutes.
By the way, I would not grant university permission to any university because there could be events at a particular university might have someone's popularity with the 5 of them.
And I think that wouldn't be right. I think if we're letting a university have it here, if they're doing new students, we should be open to it because none of us, we shouldn't decide who's coming.
Oh, and there's controversial programs at lots of colleges and universities, invited speakers. I mean, you could find yourself walking down a path we don't want to walk.
Oh, I was simply talking about new student events.
No, but I'm just saying in general, again, to Ira's point, things that may occur at a event that Harvard, you pick the school. I mean, I'm just.
Oh, no, I was just giving universal approval to a new student event because especially if there's a Jericho student there, but I would know some of these colleges might violate the establishments clause and then we couldn't give them it. And I defer to Mr. Powers on the establishments clause.
So here's what I can recommend, which is the bottom of page 1 makes it very clear that only groups affiliated with the school district from this community can use your facilities. Perhaps I can structure something for you for non-community groups where the superintendent, using the terms and conditions of the policies, can make a decision concerning non-community groups and to notify the Board of Education of his decision. In a timely fashion, right. So if Harvard calls on a Thursday requesting Monday, Hank gives them the go on Friday, Hank notifies the board on Friday, Harvard's going to be here on Monday.
Can I just say something? Going back to the percentage, I do agree that there shouldn't be a percentage place because for Girl Scouts, we're Jericho Syosset, and there's about 35 Jericho Syosset troops and maybe 5 from Jericho and 2 of mine. So whenever we have our big events, we have to have it at Syosset schools because we don't have 50% of Girl Scouts. So I do agree that having a lower percentage would definitely be ideal for us.
I thank you. I agree with you, Mr. O'Connor. But I do believe, and I'm not trying to get too legal, I think Girl Scouts fall under one of those, and I used them before as an example, not intentionally, but I think they fall under a separate law that basically says we can't deny Girl Scouts use of our facility. I defer to Mr. Powers on that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Fran, I would approve that. I think
It does say
in the past,
it
Fran, I
does
think
say-
in the past we have approved that.
But it's been like a Jericho-based event,
We-
so we made sure
Sure.
there were 50%.
Knock on the door again, please.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, only the Boy Scouts are referenced in the federal law, but I think we afford the Girl Scouts the same protections. You're going to do everything in your power to open up the doors of the Girl Scouts. So I will work on language for non-community groups where the superintendent, using the standards identified in the policy, will notify the Board of Education in a timely manner as to its decision concerning the outside groups and non-community groups.
Not timely manner. Timely manner just gets us right back to our interpretation. And again, I'm trying to avoid the issues that we've had over the last 6 months. The first issue was less than 24 hours notice.
Sam, why don't we try?
The second issue was less than 2 hours notice.
Why don't we try timely manner and see if that works for all of us? Obviously, I'm aware of your sensitivities, and I'm comfortable with using timely timely fashion as a guideline. And let's see how that works out. If timeline doesn't work out well for you, then you can change it to 30 days. But I'm suggesting let's all work together and try in a timely fashion with some degree of trust.
We could try it.
Thank you, Sam.
Mr. Powers, would you like to answer that? Or Hank, would you like to answer that?
Sure. There are all kinds of definitions in the policy.
At the bottom of page 1, benefit of the greater school district community, only community-based groups and organizations, parentheses, that is, groups which are located within the geographic area covered by the school district and have a membership of a majority of district residents. That's the definition from page 1, bottom paragraph.
Then there are additional definitions on the succeeding pages as well. PTAs, regular school activities.
Well, those are all going to be, PTA is going to be majority.
Do we want to scratch the word majority?
I think we want to scratch a lot of words out of this policy to try to make it
Well,
understandable. It's
While we have Chris working on a revision, I would recommend that we consider taking the word majority out, which would help Fran out.
I mean, again, I'm not quite sure why at the beginning of the year we can't say, we just have a schedule that we approve at the beginning of the year. Girl Scouts have full access to the building. JA has full access to the building pending the superintendent's approval. I mean, I think those are it. I think the issue comes in to play when we have new groups or unusual or one-off activities. If we know that we're having Girl Scouts, if we know we're having JA, if we know we're having Men's League, if we know we're having PTA meetings, I mean, those should just be on a schedule that gets approved with all the other schedules at the beginning of the year. And then that's all in the superintendent's thing. It's when we have the one-off situations that we run into trouble, and where I think that at this point, the board does need to have some supervision, some oversight.
I thought we gave Chris some direction to draft a policy. Why don't we see what, based upon what we've shared with Chris, what he can draft, trying to take maybe 7 pages down, some number of pages, and representing the discussions that you've heard tonight, Chris.
That would be great. And I just ask that, Mr. Powers, if you're going to distribute a draft, please distribute it to the entire board, not just administration or particular board members.
Sure. So the last point that was raised is whether we should keep in the word majority or delete that word. I just need some direction from the board on that, please.
My recommendation would be to eliminate the word majority so that we would put that back into discretion.
Right, but then we need to define community organization a little bit, not a little bit. but
Community
all the way.
organization, obviously, terminology, community organization implies that it is a community, a Jericho community-based organization. For example, Fran's organization is a community organization that may not have a majority, but is a Jericho community-based organization.
Okay, so if Mr. Powers can just fix up the language so it's a definitive language for community groups.
Sure.
Okay, so I guess, are we tabling this? Yeah.
Just
Rewriting.
One other little thing under prohibited uses, under the meeting sponsored by political organizations. In the original policy, it makes the exception in terms of polling, using it for use as polling places for elections. So do we need to make that distinction here?
That's actually
That's
required by law that your elections take place here, so you don't have to add
So
that.
you don't have to add it.
No, you're fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, we're going to wait for Mr. Powers' revisions for policy 3270.
And just final point, Dr. Fresco, do you agree that the board should have input into these decisions? Or you think this is purely writing a policy that then turns the keys over to the superintendent? Because I'm trying to understand where you came at, where you were positioned on that.
I think again, my understanding of our initial conversations and my opinion on this is I think the decision, again, we're going to have a policy. I think, Hank understands what we're looking for, and I firmly believe that he should have the discretion to make the decision. It was also my understanding that in any case, if somebody has an issue with a decision that the superintendent made, they have the right to appeal that to the Board of Education. I firmly stand by the fact that I do not want to be personally involved in voting on requests for use of a room in the school. But I acknowledge that the Board of Education can and will step in if need be. I also know, and based on recent conversations, and this has been discussed in the open, that if there is any question as to whether a request should be granted that kind of falls out of the normal guidelines that Hank would use to make that decision, he would approach it with the board prior to rendering that decision. And I agree. Somebody who requests to use a room within 30 minutes, short of that being a public safety issue or a first responder organization that needs to take up residents in the building for some important reason, responding to some sort of an emergency, there's really no situation in my mind where I could see that would have to happen quickly. Again, we could define what that timeline might be, but by and large, I'll defer to the superintendent on making those decisions and using discretion as to when to involve us.
Chris, but that kind of also puts us right back where we were. I think what Sam was kind of asking you, and I think it's not clear, is
Yep.
if the superintendent approves a group coming in and we as a board do not feel that it's right, then at that point, we have to have the discretion to say no.
And I think we have that right now, irrespective of what this policy says. The Board of
No,
Education.
we can't go by just what we think. It has to be in writing.
Let's ask Chris again. Chris.
So, yeah, how about if I do something like this? Page 3, all the way up at the top, it currently reads, "The determination of the superintendent of schools regarding an application shall be final." From what I'm hearing from the board tonight, perhaps that could be broken down to 2 sentences. Sentence number 1, use of school facilities shall be decided by the superintendent of schools, period. The superintendent's decision is subject to review by the Board of Education.
Which in my mind was implied, but I mean to codify that in no way, I think changes anything. But that's fine.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with that.
I can do that, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So I guess all in favor of waiting for Mr. Powers to rewrite 3270?
Table it and I'll get you.
No, I have no problem table. I just there's all kinds of stuff at the back also that is just sort of weird and just not enforceable. Like talks about no vehicles to be legal, motor vehicles should be permitted to be operated on any school district athletic field. What are we gonna tell the ambulance they can't come onto the athletic field to help a kid get off the field? Spectators are not allowed to have food or drink in the auditorium or gymnasium. Spectators always have food and drink in the auditorium. I mean, are we turning our guards into like food and beverage monitors? I mean,
Food and drink, I agree, Sam, is kind of silly, but the police department and the fire department could care less what a policy says. If they have to enter, cut a gate open and drive across your new track, they're going to do it. And we've
then,
done it.
Dr. Fresco, you make my point for me. What is the purpose of putting something in there that is not going to be abided by? And that's exactly it. If
Well,
you want to carve out ambulances and fire trucks, I agree with you. It's just I can't stand seeing where we put things into policy that aren't workable in real life.
What we're trying to do is for people that are using your facilities have to respect those facilities. And what this does, it breaks down into 25, 26, 27 different areas what you're not allowed to do. If you want me to get rid of that minutia, I'll gladly do so. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, I can have a general statement, which is you had to leave the premises the way you found it. I mean, that kind of comes.
Again, Sam may disagree. Food and drink is not permitted. They are not permitted in the school auditorium, in the high school auditorium.
That's fine. And I think, vehicles. So again, on the property, district vehicles, vehicles, belonging to the fire department, ambulance corps, if they happen to be your police department. But we don't want, kids driving cars around. We're not going to have, people who may want to use the fields backing
Why
big
don't we,
vehicles on there.
again, let's give Chris some discretion. I think he knows us well enough over time to see if he can whittle that down some.
And do we need to have all the insurance information and processes included in this policy, or could we do that so that it's not taking up pages in our policy book and have that as a separate sort of document that central office keeps?
Well, what I could do is, these are the nicer requirements. These are the nicer numbers. So if you do not want to have it in the policy, probably we could put it on the request form, which is you must abide by the following. So
Yeah,
'cause
that's exactly what I'm saying. Like I said, I want it to be a policy that's actually manageable. And people, like when you sent this to us in 7 pages, you're like, oh my God, what the heck is going on here?
All right. So what I can do is I can streamline the insurance information and recommend that we put it on the request form to use the facilities.
All in favor of tabling 3270? Thank you. Moving on. So first reading of policy 3271, use of school facilities, materials and equipment. Do we want to table? Okay, I gotta say it, Divya. Do we want to table? Okay, I guess.
Before we table, I mean, the last sentence of the first paragraph, monthly reports may be made to the board. I'd like that to be monthly reports shall be made to the board. I think we should get monthly reports. I think we do get monthly reports, so I'm not sure why we would change that.
They're suggesting getting away from the word shall and making it will. So I can make it.
And Mrs. O'Connor, that's where it talks about this Title 36 Patriotic Youth Group, where you throw it in with the Boy Scouts of America. So I think your troops are all covered.
There was also just something else conflicting in this policy.
I thought we said we're tabling it.
sorry.
I'm just joking. I'm joking. You could speak.
Wanted to bring attention to it. Just the first sentence in that policy just is include use by the fraternal and religious organizations. That is explicitly prohibited in the other,
Right, it's
the first
contradictory.
policy. So it's controversial, or it's
Contradictory.
what word am I looking for?
Inconsistent.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, Divya, I agree with you. But I wasn't going to bring it up because I thought we're tabling it. But no, all good.
Can we specifically reference the Girl Scouts in the policy?
I'm a big fan of
I
Girl
don't see
Scouts.
why. I don't see
So,
why. we
yes.
shouldn't.
And that way you're covered, Fran.
Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Well, we could put something separate, just recognizing the Girl Scouts and any other group that we so decide to. But
I think we should go to Washington and fight this. So I don't know. All in favor of tabling 3270? Okay, you have confidence? Okay. Okay. All in favor of tabling 3271? Thank you. Okay, acceptance of first reading policy 6470, staff acceptance use policy. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the first reading of the following policy, staff acceptance. Do I have a motion? Motion. Sam, motion. Divya, second. Thank you. Can we please discuss? Anyone? 6470. No comments? We can go. We can go all night. It doesn't matter. All right. I guess.
You just added one sentence. Right.
Dunkin' Donuts run. Okay. All in favor? 6470. First reading of 6470. Thank you. Acceptance of internal audit report. Be it resolved that the Board of Education acknowledges receipt of the school district's internal audit report from Naraki Smith LLP, and being that there were no recommendations, a corrective action plan is not necessary for the year ending June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Sam, motion. Divya, Chris, sorry, both of you. Second. Okay. Any discussion? Any questions? No? All in favor? Thank you. Martha C. Sammartano Memorial Scholarship Fund. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accept and hold in trust donations in memory of Miss Martha C. Sammartano and establish the Martha C. Sammartano Memorial Scholarship Fund to account for these donations for the purpose of making annual scholarship awards in accordance with guidelines to be established by the Scholarship Committee. Do I have a motion? Sam? Second? Divya, thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
And with that establishment, the first award from the Martha Sammartano Memorial Scholarship will be made this Monday night. So thank the board for doing this this evening so that we can honor Martha this Monday night.
Thank you. Approval of schedules, going to go all the way from A13428 all the way to the end. U355. Do I have a motion? Sam, second. Second. Divya, thank you. Any questions? I'm sure we have some questions.
There were actually a few questions from Jill and Jen prior to the meeting. I'll just go through those first. One talked about budget transfers for security. There were two sets of transfers, one for security upgrades and the other one for the security company Allied. And the question was, how much do we think we'll spend just in Allied for the year? We're increasing it by $225,000 for a total for the year of $675,000 approximately. We tried to estimate the month of June in that number as well. We did hire John as an employee now, so that will be somewhat offset. We will not have that expense on the monthly bill for Allied. So they're reducing by one and we increase by one employee. Another question for BOCES income, why that went down. We just brought it down to the exact amount. It was about $4,000 to what the lease agreement states, and we do bill out separately for utilities, which is coded in a different revenue code. And then asked about the state aid going down. Overall, it did not go down. We were just putting them in the appropriate categories. For example, BOCES aid is separate. Library aid is separate, and that was actually, Jen, one of your questions. What is library loan program? That's just what the state calls their aid for the library. Each district is entitled to, I think it's $6.50 per student, and every district is entitled to that. Another question was, what is the auction contract for? We did put on the agenda for Auctions International, and we're going to give it a try. That will allow us to, for example, an obsolete vehicle, we'll put it out on auction and see what kind of feedback we get. We have heard other districts use it. The state approves of using this type of system, and we're going to try it out and see if it works. Refund prior year expense is a revenue code. What that means is if we had an expense last year, this is primarily usually through BOCES expense last year. When they close their books, they could provide us a refund based on that, and that refund would go under the revenue title prior year, refund of prior year expense. A couple of questions on the warrants, digital provisions. Both of those checks were for district-wide camera projects that were in the works this year and completed. Dominion Construction, they are the contractor that will be doing the HVAC portion of the middle school, high school science rooms, and I believe that was the first payment for that project. General ledger, the class of 22 and 23 in the student activity fund, if there are monies left over, what happens to those funds? It will be then reverted back to the freshman year for any balances that are left over from a prior senior class. And I think that was all of the questions.
I had a question about the UPK agreement. I just wanted to know, I know that Mrs. Clutter is designated the director of the UPK program. She's the building principal, but who is the liaison that's specified in this contract?
Who is the liaison from Scope?
No, there is a liaison between the school and and Scope. Is it Ivy? It's you, Ivy. And so are you also the same person doing the formal evaluation of the program? It says it's a district administrator that's done annually.
Joanna really watches the program on a day-to-day basis and provides feedback to Dr. Sherman in central office on a regular basis. So on a regular basis, there is definitely our administrators going into the program in addition to Scope. Their administrators visit the program as well. But there's definitely communication between us and Scope, and that's how we evaluate.
So it's not a formal evaluation at the end of the
The
year. It's just
again,
running-
it's Scope employees, so they would formally evaluate their employees, but they do provide us feedback. And again, Joanna's in there probably every day because they're adorable to look at. But it's she's in there every day.
Technically, legally, the employees are Scope employees employed by Scope. There are two people assigned at Scope who are charged with directly supervising the teachers in the program. Being that we are Jericho, we probably provide a level of supervision through Joanna and through Ivy that's above and beyond what happens in most Scope districts.
And just since we're on UPK, as part of this agreement, the superintendent confirms that there's no conflict of interest as a board member of Scope and that this is a fair market deal.
It's a good question, Sam.
I didn't know that last year when we approved it, so it was new information
I've
to me this year.
been president of the Scope board and I've been on the executive board of Scope for 15 years. I'm not
I
sure.
understand that.
Yeah.
So, and I know you get no compensation from them
I
according to their
receive no
website and-
compensation.
Okay. I just think it's important always to make those points.
Sam, I receive no compensation outside of the Jericho School District.
Thank you, Melissa. Where are we at? We are at, bear with me. On the late transportation requests, do we not pay a per student fee to that, Mr. Manuel? I'm just trying to understand how, even if we have a bus going to that school, doesn't the cost go up if we add an additional student or two to that run?
Yeah, Sam, I think we had this, when we discussed the appeal, there are, two ways we deal with an appeal after the April 1st date. If we have a bus where we're not counting seats, we will put a student on a bus where there's no direct cost to the school district. Where there is a contract where we're paying a per student fee, and I believe in that case, we're looking at an excess of $300 per month. At that point, we say no to the late request. Again, two different situations when we evaluate a late request for transportation to a private parochial school.
No, that's just what I'm trying to clarify. So for those schools, we don't pay on a per student fee. We just pay on a bus fee, so that if we add more students to it, there's no additional cost to the district.
And then we approve that request. So if we receive a late request,
sure,
and there's no additional cost to the school district because we are currently running a bus hypothetically to Friends Academy, and there are empty seats on that bus, we will approve the late request.
And I have no problem with that. What I'm trying to understand is, how do we not have any incremental cost if we're already running the bus?
In this case, we are not running the bus. We are paying a per student fee to first student.
For these,
again, I'm not even talking about these two specific ones. I'm just talking about in general.
Right.
If we have a bus going to Friends and it has 10 students on it, and we call them up and say a brother and sister are now going to that school, we need 2 more students on that bus, and they say no problem, it's a 20-seater, we've only got 10 seats filled. You're telling me First Student doesn't charge us any extra money for that bus?
That is correct.
That's what I was trying to confirm. Thank you. Moving on to the next schedule, ID 13339, Instructional Curriculum Associates. It seems like almost every teacher's on here getting 1.95 days. What is this for? I know it's summer, but so basically all of our teachers are working. Is it 1.95 days per week, per month, for the summer?
They're taking 1.95 days for the workshop. So they're here for 2 days doing workshops, or they can get paid to do a project, but they get paid 1.95.
1.95 days of salary. And now, is this something where how are these assigned, or anybody who asked to do this gets this? Okay, so there's no.
Projects are approved by the curriculum associates.
Okay.
Sam, contractually, the maximum is 500 days for the entire unit. Ivy sends out information on possible PD opportunities for teaching or curriculum writing, etc. But we work around what's in the contract of 500 days annually.
So as long as not all 310 JTA members apply, we're pretty good, and everybody's able to get into it. You sort of get up to like 250
For the most part, but again, we do the calculation together based on 500 days.
Got it. Okay. Then moving on to 13401, 13467, 13466. Summer non-instructional appointments, instructional summer CSE, non-instructional summer CSE. Do you know, Mr. Manuel? So are these are actual instructional? These are actually people who are working during the summer, correct? Got it. Now, how are these assigned? Is it by seniority, by reviews, by discretion? And they apply, but then who do we select? Or does everybody get a job, or how do we select who gets those? And what about the other ones? Like there's a CSE one, there's an ESY one, and then there's the non-instructional appointments.
Non-instructional appointments are all related to summer school as well.
Right. No, I assume all these are summer school, but but who's making the appointments? That's what I'm trying to understand. Got it. And Mr. Manuel, do you know about how much we spend each summer for is it just these 3 categories? Non-instructional, instructional summer CSE, and non-instructional summer ESY are the three parts that would contribute to our summer school expense?
There's various parts of summer school. One is the original program prior to COVID, which was specifically specifically for our special education students. Since COVID and American Rescue Plan and that grant money, we were able to add in those other programs I discussed earlier in the meeting, which are fully funded through those grants. The exact amount for each summer school, at the top of my head, I don't have that information.
But you can provide that over the next week or two?
I could look at last year's. That would be an
just
estimate.
how much is coming out of our budget versus how much is coming from the COVID money?
Oh, very little is coming out of the budget. Even the special education program, there's the line in the budget transfer to special aid, which is specifically for the special education summer school program. And that money that we transfer is net of any aid we will receive that year or the following year, depending on when the state sends it to us. And I think last year it was in the $250,000 range, and that's the only money that's coming out of the general fund.
Thank you.
Can I have an approval of the schedules? All in favor? Thank you. And before we adjourn, I would just like to say a very big congratulations to all the seniors who are graduating. Have a very happy and healthy summer ahead. And And yeah, best of luck on whatever your next journey is. And a shout out to Jessica, my daughter, who's also graduating. And you guys are all wonderful. Have a wonderful summer. To everyone, stay safe, and we'll see you in July. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second, Sam. All in favor? Thank you. Have a great summer, guys.